Cheers everyone. Hello, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Molly and I do book content here on YouTube. And today is a very special video. I recently reached 100 subscribers. I'm now over that. And so I thought 2-3 weeks ago to do a Q&A video. That's what today is. And initially I thought maybe I could do the get to know me book tag as well. However, since looking at the questions, knowing how much I am good at talking for way too long, and then seeing the amount of questions in the get to know me book tag, I have decided to just not do them in the same video. So I am going to do the get to know me tag at a later date. I'm not sure when yet, but I will. So yes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer everyone's questions and we'll see what to do from there basically. This will probably be a long one, knowing what I'm like, so I hope you have a hot drink or cold drink, whatever you want, and maybe a snack or food of some sort. You might want to do that, but it's fine if you don't. It's all up to you. And for those of you who are interested, I have a sugar-free pumpkin spice latte. I think it's just pumpkin spice, so it's just a pumpkin spice coffee. I don't make a proper latte, but it's definitely latte-ish. I like my coffees milky. So let's get started. I don't think I've got anything else to say. So let's get straight into the questions because I have a few. I forgot to check whether anyone wanted their names read out, so I apologise if you didn't. I think most of you have channels, so I'm sure those of you who do won't mind that, but I'm not sure if everyone does, so yeah, let's get on with it. What I'll do is, unless it's someone, no, I'll just do it anyway. Okay, so they're not in any particular order other than order of where they came from in the comments / comments of the YouTube post that I did. So they're not in any special order, it's just the order that I read them in. And guess what? I remembered to actually write them down before I actually started filming. So I don't know who she is, but she's doing it. Okay, so the first question from Reese from the Writing Songbird, and she's got a couple of questions. So I'll read the whole comment and all the questions, and then I'll answer each question as I go along, and I'll do that with everyone if there's more than one question. So Reese asks, what is your favourite flower, and is there a book you own or loved with that flower on its cover? What is the best read of the year so far for you, and what makes it stand out to you? So what is your favourite flower? I have lots of favourite flowers. I don't really have a flower I don't like. And there's all, yeah, like I always love seeing all the flowers no matter what they are. So I have a lot of favourites, to be honest. Like with most things, I don't have just one. But there is one flower that I love, that do actually have a book with that flower on the cover, and it is a book that I loved, and actually it's a book that started me off on reading a particular author. It was like my introduction to him. So the book that I thought of and picked out, it's a little bit dusty, I apologise, but the book is Marina by Carlos Readathon. And obviously there's a rose, which is one of my very many favourite flowers. I just love all flowers. I don't really have a preference. But I love roses. They're a classic flower for people to love, especially the red rose. But I love all of them. That I've seen anyway. I'm sure I'll love other colours too that I've not seen. But yeah, I picked this one because this is the first book I ever had from Carlos Readathon. My mum picked this book up at a charity shop because as a teenager, I was really into my gothic fiction and horror, kind of, I guess. So I had things like, two books of a collection of short stories that were horror or gothic, like creepy short stuff. And so when Mum found this, she thought it was quite creepy, I assume. Or at least, it's probably because of what it says there, a gothic tale for all ages. And yeah, I don't remember too much about it, but I remember I really enjoyed it. It was definitely creepy. It was definitely adventurous as well, so you had that sort of action, adventure, which is definitely a theme in all of his stories that I've read so far. He seems to write that sort of creepy, gothic-y, sort of, maybe not magical, but that sort of thing, in real life, sort of adventures. Usually he uses a lot of young, like teenagers, that are the main characters. One isn't, but that's because it kind of, it's a series, so it's interconnected. So it has like teenagers as well as adults. But so yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's what got me started on his books. So that one's definitely my answer for that one, Reese. Her next question was, what is the best read of the year so far for you, and what makes it stand out to you? And I'm sure for all of you who have watched my recent videos, I have a lot of favourites. But there's one that I just have to say because it's my first proper 6-star plus, like, 1,000,000 stars sort of thing. And it's also the only book I ever had an urge to reread pretty much straight away after reading it, which as I have said before, I don't get with books usually. But this is the exception. And that is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson, another new to me author as well. Well, not another, because Carlos Readathon isn't actually new to me now, but the book I just said was new to me at the time. But Brandon Sanderson is, this probably is, if not one of, definitely the top book of the year so far for me. And there's definitely been a lot of 5 stars and like favourites, but this is like the one that tops them all. And what makes it stand out to you? Oh, I mean, there's nothing different necessarily that stands out to me in terms of, not that it's, well, obviously it's not boring, so it's not like something that doesn't stand out, but it's nothing unusual for the genre sort of thing, at least broadly. I mean, obviously there are things that are new to me, like the types of seas that they have in this world, for example, are not the way we think of when people talk about the sea. So there's definitely things that stand out. But I think the main thing that stands out to me is not just the characters and the comedy that I really enjoyed. It was also the deaf representation for deaf people, which if you've watched my wrap up, you'll know that. Because I am hard of hearing. I have hearing problems. They were worse when I was born and they got less as I got older, but I still have them. I do wear hearing aids when I go out the house, usually, depending on what it is I'm doing. So yeah, I've never really had any that I remember deaf representation, but especially one that was really good, especially one about the lip reading, which if you see my video, I'll try and remember to link it down below in my wrap up, because I can't remember it off by heart and I don't want to have to go searching for it. But about lip reading, and it was something that really spoke to me because it's something I've always sort of felt whenever I saw things in TV shows about it, you know, where people are acting like, you know, someone has learned to lip read, like they treat it like it's magic, like they've got some sort of technology so they can listen through walls or whatever. Like it's not like that in real life. And so it was really nice to see that actually represented and said, like not just shown in how things happened, but it actually, the author, narrator, literally said a sentence that basically said that. And yeah, I just love that. So yeah, it just has a lot of plus points. It's also just really adventurous and fantastical, because also sci-fi kind of as well, because they're on other worlds, so it's kind of like a little blend, I would say. I think probably most people would class it more as a fantasy, and I think I would too, but yeah, no, this is definitely the book that stands out for me. I absolutely love it. And it's definitely made me want to try more Sanderson, although, like with a lot of fantasy authors, the page counts for a lot of his books definitely scares me, but I would give it a go, because there are big books in my book collection, and general I haven't read TBR, so I'm not averse to them, but I'm always a bit more, not really, but I'm a slow reader at the best of times, so a big book is like, it takes it takes dedication. So thank you, Reese. Also, something I didn't mention, a lot of the comments also said, congratulations and stuff like that. I didn't write those down. But obviously, thank you everyone for your congratulations in your comments and questions as well. That's really kind. Yeah, I love this community. It's definitely a blessing. Okay, so my next question is from M's Books Are Everywhere. And her questions are, what is your perfect reading day? And in brackets, she's put like suggestions, so things like location, weather, refreshments, environment, any reading accessories, or anything else that would make it a perfect reading day. And that is a great question. And a lot of it is dependent on money. So I'm going to kind of base it off another question that someone asked in terms of if money's no object type of thing. So my favourite, well not favourite, but a perfect reading day would be nothing planned. And this is a bit unrealistic for me, but something that I would like to have been able to do is go to a cafe quite early in the morning, like maybe mid-morning, 10 o'clock or something like that, and then just spending the whole day in the cafe, basically. The weather could be any weather, really. Definitely a rainy day is definitely very atmospheric. So, but it doesn't really matter to me, the weather. Refreshments, it would vary. If I'm spending the whole day in a cafe, it would be a mix of making sure I drink water and coffee. Usually, depending on what coffee shop I go to, it's usually sugar-free caramel latte, usually a large or medium depending on which cafe it is. If it's like Cafe Nero, I go for a large, because the medium's like they're regular / small, so yeah. But like other cafes, like Costa Coffee for example, they do have mostly 3 sizes, small, medium and large, so I would normally go for yeah, so food, if I'm spending all day there, it would depend on what they have available. I probably wouldn't have breakfast. I don't normally eat breakfast in general, although that might change if I was in the cafe all day. I might be tempted, so I don't know. But I'm gonna assume I wouldn't, and then I would have lunch. Again, I don't know what that would be. It would depend on what's available. I often would go for like a tuna melt panini, because I love that one, or a toasty or sandwich. It just depends on what's available, and where I am, again, because some places sell things like soup and others don't, so depending on the day I might go for that. I don't know if I would have any snacks. I'm not a big snacker usually, unless I'm needing to take ibuprofen, because you need to eat with that. So then I would possibly have a snack if it coincides with me not being able to have a whole meal. Like if it doesn't coincide with my lunch, then I would have to get something. Or if it's too far along after, I'm like, I'm not sure if I can take it on an empty stomach, like not just eating, but I've got food. So that just depends. So I probably wouldn't snack necessarily. Doesn't mean I wouldn't. And would it be a perfect day if I did or didn't? Not really. It wouldn't matter to me either way. It would still be a perfect day. Environment, like I said, a coffee shop, but it would be a perfect day. Oh, no, that's more than, I don't know. I don't know what you mean by environment. Is that the same as location? I guess not. Or maybe in terms of busyness or how quiet it is. I find that doesn't necessarily matter to me if it is that. I'm used to noise because I live at home and I've got 2 younger siblings. I mean, they're adults now, but when they're awake, they can be quite noisy when they're talking to their friends online or whatever. Any reading accessories other than a bookmark? I don't really have any. So that would be the only accessory I would have, not including my bag. But I don't have a separate bag like a book sleeve or anything. I usually just put them in. I like the idea of book sleeves, but it's one of those things where it's like there's different patterns and stuff, and I would want all the patterns, and I don't need all the patterns. So yeah. So yeah, I don't really have any accessories. Anything else to make it a perfect reading day? Not necessarily, really. I think that would be a pretty perfect day to me. Probably finishing a book, that would be probably the match of a perfect day. Depending on the book and when I've started the book, that might not be possible, but that would definitely be like the icing on the cake. Yeah, and I think that's it. Thank you, Em. That was a really good question. That was a difficult one, kind of. Well, it was a thinker. Okay, the next question is from Anne from In Search of Wonder. And for her, she said, for my question, I would love to hear your story of how you became a Christian. Also, I'd love to know more about your journey as a reader. So, that is a very good question, Anne. And that's why I've never really talked about my story much, because I knew one day, if I ever did a Q&A like I am, someone would probably ask this question, because obviously I'm part of the Christian community. And so, thank you, Anne. So, it's a long story, so like I said, grab a drink like I just have. Definitely need some lubricant for my throat. Not that it's dry, but it's a long story. So let's start with a family member first. So my grandma grew up Christian, was and still is, because she's still alive, a Christian her whole life. She's got a wonderful faith, and my grandma is my dad's mum. So my dad grew up in a Christian household, but he kind of walked away from the faith probably when he was about a teenager, probably a kind of classic teenage sort of timeline of, I want to go do my own thing sort of thing. So I grew up in a agnostic, atheistic kind of non-religious household, but I was influenced by obviously the Christian morals because my dad grew up with those, and also just by being around my grandma and my grandpa as well, with again Christian morals, and also from stories of spiritual experiences my grandma's had with, like, I don't know, spirits, out of body experiences, stuff like that. Incredible stories, but I won't go into them because they're not private, as in private, if you know what I mean. But they're not my stories, so I'm not going to share them. But my grandma would talk about them over the years, and because of that, I always had that sort of open-mindedness, agnostic sort of feeling. Because when my grandma would tell these stories, I would never think, oh, she's just making it all up, sort of thing. Like, I never heard those stories and saw her telling me them and think, oh, she's not telling the truth. Like, I took her at face value because I was a kid as well, of course. So, I never doubted those experiences. I never thought much about them for a long time because obviously I wasn't a Christian, but, they definitely kind of opened me up to the possibility of a God or ghosts or demons and angels, etc. So for the majority of my life so far, because I've only been a Christian about 5 years, or 6. I came to Christ this time in 2020, so yeah, about 5 years. So for the majority of my life so far, I didn't grow up Christian. I did try going to church when I was a little kid, but I was too young it didn't suit me. I did used to always go and help out at my grandma's church though, so when they would have like a summer fair or Christmas fair, coffee mornings, I would go over and, you know, either help out or just be around, you know, my grandma's church family. So I was around people as well. So I never really had faith, really, in that respect. But I would learn about it in school, of course, and I always used to have those Christian morals. Like I loved, and still love, the Good Samaritan story. I remember when I first heard that in school, I was like, that is what I want to be like. I want to be the sort of person who would help anyone, regardless of who they are, you know. So I always had those morals. I always had that little kind of foot in the door sort of thing. So obviously, as we all know, 2020 happened. And in about sometime in August 2020, I came to Christ. My dad had already come to Christ before then, quite a few years, but it was still quite a long time of a process as well. So yeah, he had come to Christ, so I was also a bit more around, well, not massively Christian stuff necessarily, but it was definitely more spiritual stuff. But it was Christian-based spiritual stuff, like not New Age, as far as I'm aware. My dad was very against that sort of stuff. So I was also then being influenced by my dad because he would watch these videos. My parents split up when I was 5, so I would go over once a week, stay the night, and so, you know, we would chat or we would watch videos, or he would whilst I was reading or doing my own thing on my phone or whatever. So even in the background, I was taking in that information or thought processes, whatever. So for quite a few years, I was being influenced in the background that way as well. And then in 2020, the lockdowns happened. So obviously, you know, people's mental health got worse, including my own. Although not massively, but I was already... Well, it wasn't really that. I wasn't... No, it kind of was. I was more anxious. I think it was more that than actual mental health stuff. But basically, during that time, my dad sent me a video from this lady who does Christian videos. And so I watched it, and it made me think, and it kind of like tickled my ears, so to speak. Which isn't a good thing, but in the terms of it prickled my interest. There's a cat. She's been fed. She probably wants to go in Roman's room. Alright. I don't know where I was. Talk about... Oh, I remember. Okay. So yeah, my dad sent me a video from this lady, and she... What was it about? I think it was about the pre-tribulation rapture stuff. I don't have a set belief in those things, but it's what started me off. Her video, so I prayed to God about it, you know, asked him to send me a sign, you know, either another video by her or whatever. And so the next day or a couple of days later, she uploaded a video, and it was her feeling led to talk about this particular thing, you know, which was answering my prayers. And I was like, what? So I basically believed at that. And, you know, whilst I do think it's definitely a way to come to Christ, it's not something you should base your faith on. You know, I am all for, you know, building your faith, not based on whether you get raptured before or after or during the tribulation, or whether there's a tribulation at all, or whether it's already happened. I mean, there's all sorts of theories that I've heard. I don't have a particular set one. I have had my questions about the tribulation and whether it might have already happened, because there's definitely things that have happened throughout history that are connected to things talked about in Revelation about the tribulation and stuff. But at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't really matter in terms of salvation. But yeah, so that is what brought me to faith. I have had other experiences, even before I became a Christian, of experiencing things like evil spirits, if not demons. I've had a couple of experiences. I don't know whether you want me to talk about that or not. It's technically not connected, but I could always, well, I don't know, I'll leave it for another time. I could always talk about that another time. I have had a couple of experiences of evil spirits and stuff, or at least other spirits anyway. Although I don't think I really believe in actual ghosts, but like most people talk about, you know. But yeah, anyway, I don't know if there's anything else about my faith. I guess I could talk about continuing on. So I basically came to Christ in 2020, and then obviously I have been building my faith since. I didn't go to church straight away, because I have problems with the church as a body, people at the top sort of thing. We all know about those, maybe not horror stories, but you know, those really bad things that have happened through the church, because of the church, to children. So, you know, I've had a lot of issues with it, and I still do. You know, just because I do go to church now doesn't mean I agree with those things happening. But yeah, so at first I didn't go to church, but then when my grandpa passed away in, I think it was the day before New Year's Eve in 2021, I think, my grandpa passed away, and so after that I started going to church at around Easter of 2022. Near-ish, like around that sort of month. I can't remember what month that was. It might have been April or end of March or something like that. So yeah, I didn't go to church for a year, and then, but I did my own studies at home. Although I say study, it was mostly just reading the Bible at the time. But yeah, I did start properly studying since then. I started to go to church every week. Initially, I was going to two, so I would go to my grandma's church, the one I would visit for fairs and stuff. I would go there. I still do every morning. Not every morning, every Sunday morning. You know, barring illness or whatever. I would go there, and then in the afternoons, if my dad was feeling up to it, because my dad was already going to church before I started going, he would go to grandma's one. We would then sometimes, if he felt up to it, or if I felt up to it, usually him, but sometimes me as well, we would go to an afternoon church. It would start at 1, and that was in nearby in Levenshulme, a place called Levenshulme, and that was it's a Korean church technically, like the pastor is Korean. But it's lots of different people. It's not just a load of Koreans there. We've got people who are Indian, white people, African people, got all sorts. So we would go there. It was a very different church, and my grandma's is a non-denominational Church of England in the morning, so it was very structural, shall we say, very traditional in that respect, although not in the Catholic way, not quite. But it wasn't. I have some problems with it. It's because of it being really structured. But I also like that structure. It also has traditional hymns, so it's usually the organ or piano being played by one of the members, and we would sing. Obviously, we normally get communion every week. But that's because we have a reverend. If we didn't have a reverend, it would not be every week unless we had visiting reverends in, unfortunately. Because there's a lot of stuff going on with the Church of England with all of that. I think it's because of lack of people going into the ministry. So yeah, there's a lot of issues with that at the moment. There's not really anyone staying permanently necessarily, which is a shame. But it's also a good thing because you then get different pastors and stuff like that. Although I think they're all a part of the Church of England thing. But the afternoon church isn't like that. What did he call it? I think he called it a gospel church. So it's very more Holy Spirit based. It's definitely more. I mean, there's a regular pastor, but there's also one other guy who is also like the second pastor or whatever you want to call it, who also would do sermons every so often, not every other week or anything. And then I think we did have the odd visiting preacher as well, but not often. And the music was different. There was still a structure, but it's a loose structure. There's usually, you do most of the singing first, and then you do like the sermon. And you don't usually get communion, it's only every so often you do. So it's a very different one. It's a lot more modern music, or modern versions of traditional hymns. It's just like a mixture. So it's a very different sort of service. When my dad died, I did continue there for nearly a year, but I kind of stopped going because even before then, when I was going with my dad regularly, it was a struggle. It's a lot for me to do 2 churches. Saturday is always a busy day and always a late night getting home. And then obviously, I felt like I would need to relax and, all of that. So I would often have a late night, which meant I didn't get much sleep because it would be an early start for church in the morning. So it was just a lot. And it's still a lot, even just doing the one church in the morning. But I find, even if I didn't do the morning church, but I only did the afternoon, it would still be a lot because I would still be really tired. I have impairments, so like chronic fatigue because of chronic pain, so my energy levels are very different to a normal, to a non-disabled person. So Sunday is a very tiring day, no matter what I do, how little, how much I do, it's just difficult. And it's very loud in the afternoon church as well. It was just a lot. I do like that church. I've not stopped going. Well, technically it's permanent because I've not been for nearly a year, but like I've not, taken it off my list, so to speak, completely. Like I could go back at any point if I wanted to. Will I don't know, but yeah. Nothing against the church in that church in particular. It's just it's me. I don't particularly have anything against the sermons. I don't remember them preaching anything heretical or anything like that. There's never a perfect church, but it was really good. It was very Holy Spirit filled, and proper learning the scriptures and stuff like that. So yeah, but I stopped going to that because the main reason I started going was because my dad was, and he was like, "Would you like to try it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. See what it's like." So yeah, I was mainly going because of Dad, really. It was a nice little thing for us both to do. So yeah, I just stopped going. But I still go to my morning church. So yeah, I think that's about it. Yeah, that's a really long answer to a question. And this is why I said I probably don't need to do the tag as well. So yeah, I think that I've answered everything. If anyone wants to know more about my story, any specific questions that I've not answered, or you want to know about those spirits / demons kind of, I don't know, sort of experiences that I've had, there's not that many. I think there's only like 2, I think, that I remember. No, 3. So it's not that many so far, other than like the odd dream that I've had. So I guess if you want to count those dreams, then it's like 5 or 6. But yeah. But if you want to know more about my faith journey and become a Christian or anything specific, you know, put it in the comments down below. I could always do a separate video about it. I probably wouldn't go through my story again, although that would be a good idea, so it would all be in one video, but I would feel like I'd be repeating myself. But yeah, but if you want to know anything else, just put it in the comments. So Anne also had another question. And she said she'd love to know more about your journey, my journey as a reader. So that's vague. I don't know what to say. My journey as a reader. I've always been a reader. My parents encouraged me from a young age. You know, they'd read stories to me. I'd read with them, or etc. All of that sort of stuff. So it was always a part of my life. I don't remember ever not reading books and stuff. Obviously it would start with children's picture books and go on up, of course. I did, probably after leaving high school or after college, my reading kind of reduced a bit. I was still reading, but I wasn't an avid reader. So I was kind of more watching stuff instead, mostly anime, so Japanese cartoons, because I think part of it was depression related at the time, but also because I just loved Japanese cartoons anyway. I was really big on reading manga, so yeah, anime was like the easier version of reading manga instead. So I did a lot of that for a long time. Part of that was mental health related, like I said. And then when I started coming out of that, after finally realising that I had depression as well as anxiety, I went to therapy and had meds for a while, and then went off them because I felt I didn't need them. And so far so good with that one, mainly. So what was I saying? It's a problem with me, I talk too much. Yeah, so when I was coming out of that, I was still not an avid reader, but I was still regularly reading, just not very much. I wasn't prioritising it really, to be technically, if you want. Not technically, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I just wasn't prioritising it because I was still watching a lot of stuff instead. So I wasn't like reading at home as much. I was mostly just reading when I was out or whatever. That changed when I discovered general secular booktube a few years ago. I don't know when that was. When was that? It was probably to do the lockdowns. So I was like, I'm going to read more. I was still collecting books, so, you know. But did I discover Christian booktube before? No, I'm not Christian, just booktube in general. No, it was after lockdowns. I don't know when, but it was sometime after lockdowns. It might have been 2022, 2023, something like that, or on the cusp, like 21, 22. Around that short time, I discovered booktube in general. I kept seeing videos for, who was it? I think it was Desi or Desiree from Darling Desi. I'm still following her. She's not as regular with uploads because she puts a lot of work into her videos. So they're not as regular, but they're beautiful to watch. Really satisfying. She's got lots of pets. She has a dog. And she has about 100 cats, not literally, but she has like about 3 cats, and then she's adopted 2 or 3 kittens recently. So you get some lovely little animal bits, not massively, but you do get some. But she also does a lot of lovely aesthetic, that's the word, a lot of aesthetic videos, really beautiful views, beautiful colours, either because of the time of year, but also probably with editing, you know, the colours and stuff as well. And she does book stuff, she's done book related stuff. I've watched all of her videos because I went through her backlist and then got all caught up. So she is what got me started into general booktube, and then through that I found other secular booktubers who I also love. Most of them I think I'm still following now. I don't think I unfollowed anyone, not because I didn't like them, but because I wasn't interested. I don't think so. But then, and through that, that's what I'm trying to say, and through that I started getting urged to read more again. So, which is a good thing and also not a good thing. But to be fair, I was still buying books. I was still reading. I just wasn't reading as much. But it sparked that love for reading again and what I love about reading and just wanting to read more. So I started to read more again. I started to prioritise it more. And so since then, I started reading more. And then one day, when was it? I've been on BookTube for a year. I think I knew about Christian BookTube about 6 months to a year. So I think like 2023, 2024, I started seeing Oceana's videos. From Oceana, I've got a Readathon that I always find that really difficult to say. From Christian BookTube, because obviously by then I was Christian and I'd have no idea Christian BookTube existed. And so, whilst I was reading more, I was reading secular books, non-Christian books. And so when I started seeing her videos pop up. No, because if it said Christian, I would have clicked on it straight away, because I did. So yeah, I saw her video. I don't know why I saw it or what was going on, whether it was a general BookTube video I was watching, but she came up on the suggested on the side, as they do. And I was like, wait. And it was one of her Christian, it was in the title, so it was something about to do Christian books or whatever. And I was like, wait, there's Christian books? There's Christian BookTube? So I watched her video and I was like, what? Christian fiction? It blew my mind, because I knew, obviously I knew the Bible, and I obviously knew about Christian non-fiction of all sorts, whether that's lifestyle or just theology or whatever. Well, not just theology, but, all of that stuff. So, but I never really thought it was a fictional thing as well. Not a fictional thing, but in fiction. Because I never really heard about it with other religions. I mean, I'm sure there are for Islam, for Muslims, or even probably other ones as well, like Buddhist or whatever. But Christians, I didn't really think about it. It just didn't really come into my head. I knew I probably would have been less surprised with classics. But again, even the ones that I have read are classics, like say Jane Eyre, for example, they're not necessarily what I would call Christian fiction. But because of the times they were written, and also set in as well, obviously in general it was more of a Christian nation, Christian people, especially in England, but also, America as well, and other places I'm sure. So it was never really something I recognised in my head. I just didn't know about it. So when I saw Oceana's videos, I was like, this is crazy. So, and obviously through Oceana, I've met and followed a lot of other Christian booktubers. Not everyone. I know there's quite a few really popular Christian booktubers I'm not following. I'm not following Chrissy's Purple Library, Book Lover Amanda. I know they are very quite popular Christian booktubers. Not because I'm against either of them. I just haven't. It's mainly because I have so many I'm already following. And I'm the sort of person where, even though I don't have to keep up with them all the time, I want to, because I want to support them, and I usually follow people because I enjoy watching them. I enjoy their personalities, even if the video is a topic I'm not interested in necessarily. I still watch them because I love seeing their personalities and seeing what they like or what they think. And, it's always about the individual or the people that I watch their videos for. So it's mainly because of that. It's not because I'm against them for whatever reason or anything like that. I'm not that I'm not that person. But and I have an eclectic taste in genres, so it's not genre specific or anything like that either. So, but yeah, I think that's my read. Well, yeah, through Osina, that has opened me up to Christian fiction. So, whilst I still read secular fiction, as well as non-fiction, of course, I have now been, reading a few more Christian fiction books. Francine Rivers, I think, was my first one. No, it wasn't. Sorry, there was a book by, what was her name? Is it Julie? No. Valerie? I think it was something like Valerie Bodden, maybe? I can't remember her name. But that was my first Christian fiction. I think it was called Not Until Forever or something. It was fine. It was a 4-star. But I really enjoyed it at the time, but that's because I didn't have any other books to kind of base it on. But then I read Francine Rivers afterwards at some point. And I read, did I read And the Shofar Blew first? I think I read And the Shofar Blew first by Francine Rivers, and that's like based on like mega churches. And that blew my mind. I mean, she's ruined other authors for me, because I read that and you can really feel like the Holy Spirit, and you can feel her faith in it, and it was just so rich and beautiful. Hello. Hello, Dory. You come to join me? You can answer my questions with me. Come on then. We can do it together, can't we? I'm sure you'll have some great answers. Either that or you'll just complain. What, you want to go on that side? You want to go on this side? Go on then. What are you doing? You're going over there then? There you go, you can see her. That's the door. Oh no, she's going there. Make your mind up, love. What's she doing? Hi. There she is. Dora. Dora, what you doing? Let's go to nap. Don't blame her. So yeah, Christian BookTube. Yeah, Francine Rivers, she just blew my little never read before Christian fiction mind. I was like, what? Because her writing was just phenomenal, especially in terms of the faith and reading people praying, and it was really beautiful to read. And I was just, certainly in terms of that stuff, I mean, obviously there were bits, if you've read it, you'll know there are definitely things that, that aren't good happen. But yeah, basically, yeah, that. So yeah, and through all of you Christian booktubers I watch, I don't just get secular fiction recommendations, I also get Christian fiction ones, and non-fiction too. But yeah, that's kind of my journey as a reader. Now I have way too many books, as always. And yeah. And definitely through becoming a Christian, as well as Christian BookTube, my tastes as a reader have changed. But I'm going to leave it at that, because there is a question that's about that. So I'll leave that for now. So, the next question is by Jamie from the Canton Reader, and her questions are, a book, she says, a question I would have for you is a book that has stuck with you for many years. Doesn't have to be a favourite, but it is a book that hasn't left your brain no matter how many years. So, there's quite a few. So, there's one, especially as a child. I mean, actually, there's a load of children's picture books that I loved as a kid. Some of them are classics, like When the Tiger Came to Tea, the Rainbow Fish one. I can't remember if it's just called The Rainbow Fish, but that was cool. That's very much a proper picture book, whereas The Tiger Came to Tea has a bit more writing and is for a little bit older. Yeah, so there's loads of kids' picture books. One that has always stuck with me even more and has been a major favourite as a kid is a children's book called Sit, Dinner, Sid. I can't remember the author, but I'll put pictures up. That was a favourite for me because it was about a cat, and as I'm sure you could tell by the title, it was a cat that kept trying to get dinner off of the neighbours, even though he was getting fed at home. So, and I just loved that as a kid. Not sure why, I just loved it. I'm sure there's nothing particularly special or great about the book, but I enjoyed it. I've not read it since. I don't even have a copy. I would love to get a copy, actually. But yeah, and apparently there's like a book 2, which I didn't know about. There might be more as well, I don't know, but certainly a book 2, which I didn't know about. I've not read that I know of anyway. So that's definitely a children's favourite that has stuck with me over the years. But for more adult, quote, books that stayed with me over the years are definitely the books and book series as well by Carlos Readathon. And I'm showing these 2 books because they're very similar in titles, but also one of them is part of a series, yeah. So this one is a part of the interconnected series that I was talking about that I have read. And this series has stuck with me, even though if you ask me right now, I don't quite remember what happens in this book, which is the first book, by the way. But it's always the atmosphere and the adventure. I think this is probably YA, I think, because I know the main character, Daniel, he starts off as a 10-year-old boy, but he's like a teenager of some sorts. I'm not sure what age, maybe late teens, like 15, 16. I could be longer, maybe 17 even. I love his books. If any of you watched many of my videos, he usually crops up at some point, at least with me talking about him anyway. And I recommend this series as well. It's only 3 books, I think, or maybe 4. Yeah. But this one has stuck with me a lot as well because there's a lot of maybe speculative stuff, maybe. I don't really know how to describe it. It might not be. But it's, again, he usually writes gothic, creepy stuff. So it's, so you do have that sort of speculation stuff in it. There's a lot of like sort of, what is this sort of thing? Like, it's a magical realism stuff. So it's really good. I really enjoy it. Just his works in general. But yes, yeah, I just love his books and they always stick with me, especially in particular my love for them. But the other one of his, The Watcher in the Shadows, again, very similar title, and again, this is like YA, I think. This isn't part of that series, but this is one I loved as well because, yeah, there's like this creepy house, and there's this mystery about this guy. Again, this is a teenager as well, I think. Yeah, it's just, his books are just really good. I don't really know what else to say or how to say it, but his books definitely stick with me. These 2, and Marina as well, to be honest, have stuck with me the longest. The other ones are more recent, so whilst one of them is technically years, it's not that many years, so I'm not counting it. But yeah, his books, they definitely stick with me. And definitely because I love them as well. It's not because I haven't loved them. I don't think I have any that aren't favourites for that one. Okay, so the next one is, now, I'm going to say her handle first, but I think her name is Jamie as well. And that is Reed Brucey. I think your name's Jamie, isn't it, Reed? Reed Brucey. Because I think I've heard like Lucy and others talk about it in their live sprints that they've done before for reading sprints. So I apologise if that's not your name. Sorry. But Reed Brucey or Jamie has asked me, what is your favourite genre of all time? Please tell us about your area of the UK. What makes it special? So my favourite genre of all time, I don't have one. I have a lot of favourites. But I think the one that has stood the test of time, and technically it's two, is adventure and fantasy. I have always loved those sorts of things in books because they're exciting, they're engaging. So I think fantasy and adventure, like action adventure, are definitely ones that have stuck with me the most. Are definitely the sort of genres I seem to remember reading as a kid, as well as a teenager and older. So I think they have definitely been like the ones that have stood the test of time, sort of thing. But I have loads of favourite genres. I love historical fiction, I love romance, I love historical romance. You know, like I don't have one that I only read, and most of you who've watched my videos can tell. Maybe there are times where it's a majority one type of genre, but I do read all sorts. But yeah, I think fantasy / action, adventure, sort of, they all kind of are connected, aren't they, really? But those sorts of books are definitely ones that have kind of been carried through my life. And she asked me about my area of the UK and what makes it special. So I live in the north of the United Kingdom, in the north of England. I live in Manchester, which is, I think it's northwest. So we're kind of near places like Liverpool, if you're a Beatles fan. And what makes it special? I don't know. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on what people like. So, like, a lot of people are very proud that Manchester is quite a LGBT-friendly city. We have a gay village on Canal Street in town, in our town centre. So a lot of people would say that's what makes our area special. And if that's what you think, I agree, that's great. I don't care too much about that myself. But I'm glad, you know, people feel accepted here. Regardless of my own personal convictions and stuff, you know, because at the end of the day, I don't agree with people being, I just don't agree with people being horrible to other people just because you don't agree with them, basically. But what makes us special? I'm not sure. I've never really thought about it. There are definitely things I like. We have a lot of different types of libraries. We have one called John Rylands Library, which is a bit of a gothic sort of looking structure. Kind of looks a bit like a church on the outside. I've only been in it once, so I don't know too much about it, but I remember it being very quiet, and I was very nervous about it. So I did my for me, a typical thing of nervous giggling because it was just so quiet, like even more than like a normal library. Like normal libraries, you're supposed to be quiet, but there was just something about that one that was more quiet, I guess. I don't really know how to explain it, but it was a beautiful library. I think it has a lot more of the really old books, like, you know, probably rare ones, but obviously most of the libraries are just normal books sort of thing. We also have what we call Central Library, which is kind of in the centre of town. Kind of, I don't know what counts as the centre of town, but I assume that does because they call it Central Library. That's a massive library. It has some lovely little areas inside it, and it's kind of like, kind of circular. Funnily enough, it's all book related. We have quite a few different bookshops. We do have the biggest Waterstones in the north in Manchester, which is cool. So it has like, I think 3 or 4 floors, and there's a cafe on the top floor. So that's definitely something that's special. Otherwise, I don't really know. Manchester, I mean, I guess, again, it depends on stuff. I mean, if you're a big Oasis fan, Manchester is where Oasis came from, and in fact, they came from an area that's very close to where I live. If any of you know of a place called Sifters, I think it's either the title of a song of theirs, of Oasis's, or it's in their song or something. And that is a record shop as well. I think they probably sell CDs now as well and stuff. But that is famous to a lot of Oasis fans. And that's very near to where, well, not very near because I've moved since, but it's still very near. It's very near to where my grandma lives. So we are definitely, and we used to live where they used to live. Certainly the main two brothers. I don't know if it's only them two actually. I feel like there might be more, but in their band. But either way, we've got the famous brothers, and I can't remember their names now. I'll know it when I think about it. But yeah, so if you're an Oasis fan, you'll probably think that's really special. We do have, despite living in a city, we do have a lot of lovely scenic areas. We've got lots of trees, lots of different types of parks. So yeah, I guess it just depends. I don't really know what makes it special, really. I think it's more, I feel like it's more of a mindset, you know, like, and again, depending on where you live. I know those of you in America, being patriotic about where you live, or being proud of where you live anyway, is very much a big part of your cultures in America, wherever you are. But we're very much not like that in England. We're very self-deprecating. We don't necessarily have a love for our country, certainly not to the extent of Americans anyway. But yeah, no, I mean, you know, I could be living in a worse place. I like where I live. So yeah. So Morgan from Morgan's Endless Bookshelf has asked me a few questions. And this is a good question as well, actually. Is another thinker. So Morgan has asked, which author, living or dead, would you most like to have a meal with? What about fictional characters? So an author, living or dead, I would like to have a meal with. I mean, is it cheating if I say I want to have a meal with God and Jesus? Because, like, he's the author of the Bible, technically, you know, and us. I feel like that's probably cheating. It'll happen eventually, right? You know, when we get to heaven, you know. Yeah. So definitely God. But outside of God, there's all sorts. I mean, Ellen Montgomery would be a good one. Or, C.S. Lewis would be an interesting one, because I would be interested about his education, because I know a lot of especially high-level universities, like places like Oxford, Yale, and all these other places, Cambridge and stuff, have, you know, their secret societies type of things. So I would like to ask him about things like that, because sometimes things like that can interfere with things like the Christian faith, if you're Christian, and I would be interested about his background with all of that. And the same with all of them, from the Inklings, to be honest, Tolkien as well and such like. But specifically C.S. Lewis, because he's talked about the most with that. Although I would also be scared because he's very intellectual. But I do like that in people, you know. I like to learn off people, you know. Even if I don't remember it, I find it very interesting. But in terms of anyone living I'd like to meet, I mean, Suzanne Collins would be interesting with all the dystopian books she's written. That would be an interesting one. Francine Rivers. I would love to meet Francine Rivers. I love her, because she's definitely what made me love Christian fiction even more. I don't know. Carlos Ruiz-Zafón. I mean, I've got to, haven't I? I love his books, so I'd love to have met him, because he's actually passed away. He had cancer, I think. He passed away a few years ago, and that made me really sad, because it means there's no more books. So that's a shame. So that would be cool to meet him. Otherwise, I can't really think of anyone else. I never really think that far ahead, because I don't know the people who write them. I don't necessarily think about whether I'd like to have a meal with them or not, because I don't know if I like them, you know. But I think they're definitely people I would want to get to know and see if I like them, you know. So I think that they are what I would pick. But for fictional character, I mean, I think we'd all be in debt if the amount of characters I would like to meet. There's all sorts. I mean, Anne Shirley, of course. Grace from the Freddie and Grace mysteries that Pepper Basham writes. I'd love to meet her, and Freddie as well, to be honest. But Grace specifically, because she's also very much like Anne. And imagine if they were both together, it'd be amazing. Any other fictional characters? Hadassah, I'd like to meet Hadassah. I think she would be really encouraging and in my faith and stuff. I'd love to have met her as well. Yeah, I don't know. That's all I can think of for fictional characters. Ooh, maybe Hoyd. Maybe Hoyd, who's a character in Trash of the Emerald Sea. I'd love to meet him. He sounds like a riot. He sounds like he'd be great fun. And cool. So, yeah, maybe him as well. Yeah, there'll be all sorts. I mean, there'll be ones I've never even thought of that I have read. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'd love to meet them. Have a meal with them or whatever. So yeah, all sorts. That was a great question, Morgan. I like that one. Okay, this one is from Cheryl, and I'm going to mention something now. So one of the questions at the end, the last question, is actually a question she wrote in my YouTube post, not on my YouTube comments on my Q&A announcement video. And then from her onwards, it's all from my post that I did about the Q&A. So yeah, let's get started to my last couple from YouTube videos and then into the YouTube post. So Cheryl from the Candlewick Library has asked, I would love to know if you have a very favourite author. And she's put an ellipsis and put, or maybe 5 top ones. You know me well, Cheryl. It was really difficult. Oh my goodness. And then her last question was, which is the one from the general YouTube post. She put, I would love to know your favourite thing about living in England. So, her favourite author or 5. I mean, 5 isn't enough either. There are people I keep seeing where I'm like, oh yeah, no, they'd be good too. So, an honourable mention. No, hang on, is there an honourable mention? There's probably quite a few honourable mentions. So that would probably be like Louisa May Alcott, Robin Stevens, who does the Murder Most Unladylike mystery series for young kids, like 11 plus. Definitely honourable mentions. Possibly an honourable mention is Brandon Sanderson, but I've only read 1 book, so I can't really count him. So he'll just get an honourable mention. However, I had to pick 5. Okay, I couldn't just pick 1. Sorry, Cheryl. But you knew that. That's why you wrote it in. You know me well. So I'll just quickly go through them. So one of them is an author I've mentioned 4 out of the 5 authors I've already mentioned. So let's just quickly go through them. So they're not in any particular order, by the way. Carlos Ruiz Zafón, of course. Francine Rivers, of course. I've not read this book, I'm just using it to show one of her books. But Francine Rivers, of course. No one is surprised by that. And then we have Suzanne Collins, of course. Although I've only read the Hunger Games series, I know that she has written other books, which I didn't, well, I suspected, but I didn't really know she had, outside of the Hunger Games world. So yeah. And now, the next one is Georgette O'Hare. I've not read too many of her books, but I seem to keep collecting them. I have been really enjoying it, so she's definitely a favourite author. I've also not read this one either. This is just one I'm showing for her books. And then, as you guys know, Georgette O'Hare was the one that I haven't mentioned yet. But I said I had 4 out of 5 I've already mentioned. And I'm sure all of you who have been watching my videos for a while now will all probably guess who this author is. Okay, do you want to say it with me? Should we say it together? 1, 2, 3. Ella Montgomery. Oh, what a surprise. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. No surprises there. We all know it, okay? I've only started reading in the past couple of years. And I love her books. No one watching, I'm sure, if you've watched any of my other videos, you will all know I'm a massive fan. Definitely a favourite author. So yeah, thank you, Cheryl, for those. I'm sure there's plenty more favourite authors. Some of them will be favourite author nominees, honourable mentions, because I've not read that many of their books, or only one. So yeah. So her last question, and the one that was the first one I read on my YouTube posts, was, I would love to know your favourite thing about living in England. And I have multiple favourite things, and I'm sorry America, it's because I'm comparing us to you. I'm sure you're great, okay? I would love to visit, and sometimes I think about what it'd be like to live there, because there are definitely things you have that we don't have here, and I'm like, I want that. But there we go. So there's multiple things that I love about living in England. One of them is obviously I have my family here. Apart from one, actually, I do have an uncle who lives in America. He moved over to marry his wife, and they live in Michigan. And so, yeah, I do technically have family over there. Certainly family that I'm well aware of anyway. There might be other family too, I don't know. But yeah. So that's, my family is definitely a big thing about living in England, of course. The other thing is probably things like we have a weather and not a climate. So we have a mixture, and certainly where we live, we don't get usually too serious weather. The most serious is like mild flooding. And obviously, if you're in those areas that are flooding, it's not mild, obviously. I'm not saying that. But, it's not... It hasn't affected me, which is a massive blessing. Yeah, I'm very glad we don't get things like tornadoes, really, or earthquakes, or... Well, technically we're a small island, so we could get tsunamis, but we don't really get those either. So, yeah, we don't have volcanoes that I'm aware of. I could be wrong. But as far as I'm aware, we don't have volcanoes. So, we don't really get, worrying weather situations compared to all of you in America, all over America as well. Because you're a big country. And obviously that's not even including South America. So, yeah. That's definitely a favourite thing as well. We also don't have guns, although I'm definitely pro having a gun in America if you want one, because it's not guns that are the issue, it's the people who use those guns that are the issue and what need help and fixing, and probably even the gun laws as well, not the guns themselves. So I'm very much pro having the option to arm yourself, because... Well, now you're the only ones who can actually go up against your government. If something happens, like, if we do, are we going to use, pitchforks? And most of us don't really have those, I don't think. Be like kitchen knives and scissors. Although that's not including farmers. I think there's a law for farmers because of obviously, but, farming stuff. Having to shoot a fox because they're trying to eat your chickens or whatever, But yeah, otherwise it's just the police. Yeah, our police have guns now, or at least some of them do, which is scary to think about when we don't have guns. But there we go. So yeah, those are definitely multiple favourites. I don't just have one. There's a lot of reasons why I do like this country. We do have a rich history as well, a longer history, so that's always something I love about it. You know, we have all of our castles all over the UK, you know, not just England. You know, you have your Scotland, we have Wales, we've got Ireland and Northern Ireland, you know, I think it's Northern Ireland, because we have Ireland that's part of the UK, no, part of England? One part of Ireland is independent, the other one isn't. I always forget which way around it is. I think the Republic of Ireland is the one that's not a part of us, but I can't remember. Anyway, doesn't matter. But, you know, either way, we have, you know, a rich history that, you know, whereas, well, I mean, other places do too, but like, you know, yeah. Anyway. So yeah, I have a lot of favourite reasons for it. I'm sure there's more that I don't know of because of my knowledge, you know. But yeah. So thanks, Cheryl. That's a really good question. I mean, they all were, you know, the author want to. So Kelly from Bookish Kelly has asked me, what is your favourite book of the Bible? And which book character do you relate the most to? And I assume by book character you mean general books, not characters in the Bible. But my favourite book of the Bible, that is such a good question. I don't think I have a main favourite. I love all of the books for different reasons, and some less than others. You know, like Leviticus, and, you know, because that's, I mean, like, I know it's, you know, showing the difference between before Christ and after Christ, and that Christ fulfills all the stuff going on in Leviticus and whichever other one it is with the laws and the sacrifices and stuff. But obviously there comes a certain point where you can't really keep repeating that when you're writing in your Bible or in your notebook or something. And it can be a little, I don't want to say boring, because it is interesting, but it's not as interesting as, say, I don't know, Genesis or, you know, the Gospels. And I think it also depends on how I'm feeling, I guess. Like, some will be more favourite than others. Like, if you're going through difficult times, I'm sure the Psalms is really useful. When you're struggling with, you know, doing things, I don't know what the word is, but like, you know, stuff to do with Proverbs, you know, that might be a favourite one for like teaching you things. Not, I mean, the whole Bible is as well, but, you know, a lot of the wisdom stuff. You know, and then like Genesis is really entertaining. There's all these stories and all these, you know, allusions to Christ, you know, and just all these stories and real people not being perfect at all, but God still using them and still fulfilling his promises to them, you know, despite all the mistakes that they made. You know, like there's never really a book I don't love and there isn't a favourite really. Because I don't really do, so far I haven't done specific studies, if you know what I mean, and I don't know how to explain it, but like I don't know how to explain it, I don't know, so ignore that, but yeah, there's like, and obviously the Gospels, always a favourite, all of them, really, they're all my favourites for different reasons, for different things. Like Matthew's a favourite because it's really good at showing you the connections between the Jewish traditional connections showing Christ, if you know what I mean. You know, the connections, the cross-references sort of thing. Whereas, you know, the Gospel of John is a massive favourite because it's more spiritual about it, and that's definitely more of an emotional one. Just, yeah, and then Revelation is a thing on its own as well. Like, oh yeah, I don't have a favourite. I just love the Bible. I definitely miss it when I'm not in it as much. I've not been in it as much recently for various different reasons. More recently because someone was staying over, a friend of my siblings, and he was been sleeping downstairs in our living room because we have sofa bed. So I've not been able to get to the table to do anything. But I mean, I could do stuff on my bed, but I like to have, I mean, I've done it on my bed before for a long time, and it's great in a pinch, but I like the fact that I have a table. You know, I'm not having to worry about the Bible moving whilst I'm trying to write or anything like that. But yeah, but that's fine. So yeah, I mean, it's just, I can't pick a favourite. They're all just favourites in so many different ways. You know, I mean, all of the different letters, you know, and in the New Testament, oh, just, yeah, I just love it. But the next character is, the next question that Kelly asked was, which book character do you relate the most to? And that is a very good question as well. I honestly don't know. I often find, usually more often than not, I can find something of myself in each character, especially the main characters. But even like the ones that aren't the main characters, I often find something to relate to, either because of experiences or their personalities, or the situations they've been through. So I'm sure there's loads. I can relate to Hadassah from the Mark of the Lion series by Francine Rivers, especially with the faith stuff, and feeling like you're not really showing Christ or showing Christ well to the people around you. That's definitely something I struggle with, especially because I don't work. I can work, but I can't. It's complicated. It's just one of those things. So it's not like I'm around people a lot, basically. So, and even then, even if you are, sometimes you'll feel that way anyway. You'll still feel like you're not showing Christ well, or you're not getting anywhere with them, or planting seeds, or whatever. So yeah. There's loads of characters I can relate to. For a more recent character that I can, well, I'll show you, but is Keela, I think is how you pronounce her name. It's Kiela. So I think that's Keela. I don't know, but I can certainly relate to her. She's the main character in The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst, and I can relate to her in a lot of ways. She's very much someone who likes her own space. She doesn't like people just turning up unannounced. And some of it is for good reason, to be fair, but others it's just because of her personality, and she likes her own thing, doing her own thing and being on her own and stuff. So I can relate to her in some ways as well. All sorts. I mean, yeah, there's not just any one character really. I know a lot of people try and compare themselves to the main March girls, and I think I can relate to a few of them in different ways. I can relate to Meg because she's the eldest and so am I, and she wants to get married and have kids, and she's very traditional. And whilst I don't necessarily know about the kids thing, I am definitely more of a traditional or basic B. Obviously people use a swear word for that, but a basic girl compared to my family. You know, I'm very much, you know, I like my pumpkin spice, you know, lattes and coffees. You know, I'm very much, you know, like that. I don't know. And in some ways I'm not as well, but you know, certainly compared to my family, if you met my family, you wouldn't, you would think that yourself. But yeah, so I can relate to her. I can relate to Jo with the whole, you know, independent woman sort of thing, and you know, encouraging women to do their own thing and not be mothers necessarily if that's not what they're called to do or whatever, you know. And like I can relate to, oh no, I'm getting the names wrong now. Is it Lucy? No. Another's Beth. I can relate to Beth because she's very quiet and reserved, and that's something that I'm very much like as well. So yeah, so we have that as well. And then obviously we've got Amy. That's her name. I got it. Like I'm Amy as well because I can relate to her wanting with all the art stuff and wanting a rich husband, because who wouldn't want a rich husband, right? You know, you can like go on a holiday or buy all the books and have your own library. So like I can relate to all of them in different ways. You know, I'm not quite as, you know, not selfish as Amy, but not quite as self as Amy, I guess, but I can relate to her in that way because we're all a bit selfish in that way as well. And there's that fine line between looking after yourself and making sure that you're not pouring out of an empty cup, as they say, as the saying goes, but also not being completely vapid and selfish all the time and self-centered. And I'm not saying Amy's necessarily like that either, but like she's more like that is what I'm saying. So I mean, I find myself in most characters, to be honest. So yeah, that's a very long-winded answer for you, so you're welcome. But yeah, that's that one. Okay, so we now have another Kelly, and this is Kelly. Oh no, I've forgotten your handle, Kelly, sorry, but this is Kelly with an I. The other Kelly is EY, Bookish Kelly. Oh, I can't remember your handle, Kelly, but I'll put it down below. She's also another YouTuber I follow, a Christian booktuber. And her questions are, what is your favourite childhood book? What is your favourite meal? And if you could have any animal sidekick, real or imaginary, which one would you choose? So, what is your favourite childhood book? So, I kind of mentioned that already. Sitched and the Sid, hands down, favourite picture book. Other children's books, I never really had. There was technically a couple of series that I really enjoyed as a kid. I can't remember what they're called. And they are children's chapter books, but they're not very, they're for like young kids. Maybe between 9 and 11, something like that. So there was a book called The Glitter Girls, which I read a couple of books of, only like a couple. I think I liked them. I seemed to at the time anyway. I mainly liked it because of the title, The Glitter Girls. My dad used to work in a band called the Glitter Band, and it was a tribute band, but it did actually have two of the original members from the band, the Glitter Band, which was like a glam rock band at the time, from like, was it the 70s or the 60s or something? Very much that era. But yeah, my dad worked in a tribute band called the Glitter Band. And so I kind of saw that title, The Glitter Girls. I was like, that's me, because my dad's in the Glitter Band and I'm his daughter and I'm a girl. So, very little thinking sort of thing. So it was definitely a title thought for that. But I think I enjoyed them at the time. Then there was a series, I can't remember what it's called, but it was about a princess school. And it had all these, it was very pretty. I still have to think about it sometimes. And I really enjoyed those. If I can remember the title, I'll try and put a picture of it. But I really enjoyed those. I did used to also read a similar type of book about rainbow fairies. And I think some people on American BookTube have talked about this as well. I didn't really read too many of those, but I did read some. So yeah, I think those are the main ones that I remember enjoying. Either I wasn't aware of the main series or I just didn't read series. So I would often get my books from libraries, so I wouldn't necessarily know if it's in a series or the first in a series. So I never really had favourite books that I constantly read or reread. The nearest to that is actually Sitched and the Sid. We definitely read that a good few times. So yeah, other than those, I don't really have any childhood favourites that I remember. So yeah. And what's your favourite meal? I have a lot of favourite meals. It depends on how I'm feeling. I love your classic macaroni and cheese. Mwah, mac and cheese is just so good. I love cheese, okay. You could tell, okay, I'm not thin. And there are reasons for that are impairment, disability related. But it's not all that, okay. Some of it is food. So I love mac and cheese. Classic. I love pasta, most pastas in general, like spaghetti bolognese. I like classic tomato pasta. Again, all of them I put cheese on. obviously. I think the main reason I like them is because of the cheese. Like, the cheese is the main thing for me. So yeah, those are definitely favourite meals. I love pizzas, some more than others. My favourite go-to is a tuna and mushroom pizza. So good. And obviously it still has cheese on it. That's the key here, okay? You take anything from this, cheese. So yeah, but I do love vegetable pizzas too. Just depends on the vegetables. I can't have pineapple really. I'm allergic, just mildly allergic. You know, there are people with very serious allergies, but mine does have an allergy, technically. So I can't really have that. But I do love other vegetables on pizza. I love olives as well. Beautiful. But one meal that we have at home, I don't know what the proper name is. I don't know if what I'm going to say is the proper name. But it's like an Asian dish, but not in like Chinese Asian. It's more like Muslim Asian sort of stuff, Indian. But people don't like it when you just say Indian food, because it's not necessarily Indian food. It might be more Pakistani food or something like that. I don't know which one it is, this one, but it's a rice dish, and we call it pilau. We say chicken pilau because we have chicken with it, or more accurately fake chicken, because one of my siblings is pescatarian. He doesn't eat meat other than fish, but he'll still have like dairy and stuff like that, and eggs. So we have fake vegan chicken instead of real chicken, and it's got like potatoes, it has tin chopped tomatoes, rice of course, and obviously different spices and onions. I don't know if chicken pilau is the technical word, and I don't know what the spices are. I think it's a mix of spices. Excuse me. But that is currently mine and my mum's favourite dish at the moment. So yeah. But basically I'll eat almost pretty much anything. There are foods I prefer more than others, but I'm not usually fussy. I seem to get fussier recently in more recent years, and I don't know why. Maybe I'm getting less like a people pleaser, maybe, I don't know, but I will eat pretty much anything. Favorite meal. And her last question was, if you could have any animal sidekick, real or imaginary, which one would you choose? And that is a very good question. I mean, I have 2 cats, so a cat would be the obvious option. But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, knowing me, I would probably be like a zoo. I would have all sorts of sidekick animals. I would like cats, dogs, wolves, foxes, hedgehogs. I mean, you'd have to make sure they were like the Revelation, you know, 8 the age of peace and Christ ruling for me to be able to do that, because some of those animals will be predators. They will eat those things. But yeah, I mean, then there's like those mythical creatures, you know, like unicorns or griffins. Like, imagine if you had Buckbeak from Harry Potter. I love Buckbeak. Okay, I was so sad until, you know, they go back in time, because I was like, no, not Buckbeak. He was my favourite. He's just an innocent animal. Oh, yeah. No. So I love that. I love the idea. I'm scared of heights though, is the only thing. So like a flying animal that you can ride is probably not a good sidekick to pick. But at the end of the day, it's cool. Or Pegasus, sorry. That would be well cool. Or even, like, in the book I'm reading at the moment, you don't hear much about it yet, but there are mentions, and on the cover there is a cat with wings. That would be amazing. Except also very troublesome. Anyone with cats will probably agree with me on that. You wouldn't really want your cat to be able to fly. We'd all be doomed. But there's also a talking spider plant too. That would be cool. Like, oh yeah, to have a talking animal, that would be cool. Definitely, especially if they're like a sarcastic cat or something. Or like in the book, the spell shop is like a bit of a dry, sort of sarcastic spider plant type of thing. So yeah, there's all sorts. I would be happy with anything. It would be so cool. I wouldn't know what to pick. I guess it would also depend on like if I'm in the normal world or if I'm in like a fantasy world, because then it would depend. Because like there might be some you would want more than others, like maybe something like a hippogriff or a pegasus where they can fly, you know, or whatever. So like, oh yeah, too many choices. That's such a good question, Kelly. Why are you all having such good questions? I am nearly an hour and 40 minutes into this video, and that's from all of your good questions. Oh, you guys are gonna like want to unsubscribe at this point. You're like, this is literally like going to the cinema, except nowhere near as interesting. Okay, so this next question is by Dia from Novel Idea. And her question is, what are your favourite themes to read in books? And that's a really good question, dear. Thank you. I don't know. That is the short answer. I don't know. I don't really think too hard about it. But in terms of, I know especially romances, you get different themes, you know, Grumpy Sunshine, Friends to Lovers, etc. So that's definitely an easier one, although at the same time I'm open to trying other ones because I'm quite new to that, or at least new to being aware of these different like themes or dynamics. So I do love a Grumpy Sunshine, I do love Friends to Lovers, I love Enemies to Lovers, I love like I also love, if any of you have watched Indiana Jones and you know about Marion and Indy, okay, Dr. Jones, like a dynamic like that, yes, I love that. I don't know if I've read that in books yet. I probably have, but I've not read a load of them, so I might not have done. So that's always a theme I like. But otherwise, if it's not romance, I don't know. I don't really know what counts as a theme in a book. I guess I do quite like, especially in like dystopian sort of, you know, fighting against the corrupt government stuff. That would be the activist in me, because my mum's a disabled political activist, so like disability related stuff specifically, but also other stuff. So that's definitely like a part of my life and kind of in my blood, I guess, sort of. So yeah, I do like those themes as well. Definitely one where, you know, good overcomes evil sort of stuff. Definitely. Yeah, I guess it just depends on the genre, because I read a lot of genres. I don't stick to just one or two or whatever, so it just depends. And I guess it depends on what mood I'm in as well, so, you know, there we go. So yeah, I think if I've answered your question correctly, dear, I think that's my answer. Let me know if I didn't quite get that right, because I can always add to it in your comment. But yeah, that's my answer for now. And my last couple of questions is from Celestia, and she's asked, if you could do anything and money and current circumstances were no object, what would you like to do? And then her next question was, how has your reading taste and preferences changed over the years? So, if I could do anything and money and circumstances were no object, oh, there's so many things I would do. For a more selfish sort of, for me sort of thing, it would definitely be sort of like travelling the world or building a accessible home that my mum in her wheelchair can actually get around in, like one with a lift, one with enough space for mum to turn around and, you know, use the kitchen, and also has you know, maybe living in the middle of nowhere, and, you know, maybe a gardener who can like plant food as well as flowers and stuff like that, you know, like a big gardens or acres or whatever, as well as travelling the world, and obviously having room for my own library. Yeah, my own library, and like a study library area where I could be, you know, areas where you can be really comfy and relax and read books, but then there's like tables or a table where you can, like, you know, study or write things or whatever you want to do, you know, sat up straight so you're not like trying to write things when you're relaxed or whatever. So yeah, that would be cool, those things. But in a less selfish way, I would also really love, as like a kind of like a pipe dream, like an unrealistic dream that I don't expect to ever be able to do, but it's something that I would like to do if money and circumstances were no object or not something that held me back. Would be to have like a massive house, kind of like a mansion or whatever, that could be converted into different flats, and have like, kind of like when you have like a supported accommodation for like older people or even people with disabilities, where you have people who can help you with things, but you also have your own space and you can still do your own things if you can, you know, like cooking or whatever in your own home, like flat or apartment. And it would be for homeless people to help get them back on their feet, and so you would help them with living, you know, there would be people to help them with living and looking after themselves, but also, you know, getting ready for going back into society, you know, where they can start earning, you know, getting jobs, you know, getting their own place if they are able to, but also still have the option for those who can't do that for whatever reason or for however long, you know, a supportive accommodation and a place to live and a place to, you know, have enrichment and just look after themselves a bit better, you know, help them get onto benefits or welfare in America, you know, stuff like that. Like, that has always been a dream of mine, to kind of help homelessness, because that is a big thing. Some places are worse than others, but yeah, that would be something that I would love to do. But also helping animals as well, like a place kind of like, I don't know if you've seen the film Hotel for Dogs, but like, you know, like a place like that for animals who have no home, and maybe, you know, help them get places to live, but also, you know, people don't necessarily have to do that, you know, they would still get all the people looking after them, feeding them, playing with them, the space to play. I mean, you need to make sure it's not too much space, so then you can get the dogs back especially, and have, you know, the right sort of fencing so then they can't escape and get lost or hurt, etc. Kind of like 101 Dalmatians type of thing. So that would be really cool as well. All sorts. I mean, if money's no object and circumstances are, I mean, there's so many things you could do. I mean, I could go to other countries and help people there, you know, or, you know, finance people to do that for, you know, well, not for me, but, you know, charities and stuff like that, and support ministries as well. You know, like, oh, there's just so many things you could do, you know, either yourself or, you know, kind of pay towards people to be able to do those things like charities and stuff. So yeah, that's such a good question, Celestia. Yeah, there's all sorts. And Celestia's last question, and the last question of this video, which I'm sure you could all breathe a sigh of relief. Her last question was, how has your reading taste and preferences changed over the years? And that's a good question. I mean, some of those things, like my preferences and tastes, are partly to do with my age, getting older and stuff like that. My memory as well, like some things I probably loved as a kid I probably wouldn't like as much now. So yeah, but I think the main bit that has changed, like my preferences and taste, is definitely my faith, you know, being a Christian. Whilst because I was so young, I was never really necessarily reading erotica or like open door scenes necessarily, but I definitely read things that were definitely on the spice maybe, or certainly had things shown that you probably wouldn't want your kids reading, or certainly now as a Christian. But I did read at the time, you know, there would be topics not topics, but, you know, like I might have read things like witchcraft stuff that I wouldn't choose to read now. And I don't necessarily mean Harry Potter, although maybe, but like things like, there's a book out at the moment by Grady Hendrix called Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. And whilst that sounds really good, the synopsis, there's also like kind of real life sort of magic stuff sort of thing, like a grimoire sort of books, you know, those sort of magic books that are often at least heard about as being real magic or whatever. So like I wouldn't read that now. Like, oh, but you know, before I was a Christian or when I was really early on in my faith, maybe I might have done then. Or talking about people raising people from the dead. So like there's a film that I was talking about, well not talking about, but I mentioned in a comment on someone's video. I think it might have been Whitney actually, or someone anyway, one of the Christian booktubers that I watch. And I was saying that there was a book called Ninth House by Lee Bardugo that I was really interested in reading, because I do quite like my dark academia or just academia stuff in fiction. But that one is about raising the dead. And I was like, you know what, I don't think I'll read that. And it's a shame because it sounded really interesting otherwise. But I just didn't want to be reading that because that is very, well, it's basically playing God for starters. But, you know, it's not something I would read now for my own convictions. And obviously that's not, you know, if you're a Christian and you do read those things, that's nothing, I'm not going to hate on you or condemn you. It's definitely something you need to talk to God about and your own discernment and listen to the Holy Spirit. I think he wouldn't want you to read those things, but I'm not going to force you or tell you shouldn't read those things. It's something you need to have a conversation with God with, you know. So, you know, these are only my convictions. And some books I would probably read and that I would read, and then I would read a similar book, but I'd be like, oh no, I'm not going to read that. You know, so like that also depends on my mood maybe, or like to the extent that one author goes about it to another maybe. So it does depend. And like spice, in terms of romance stuff, I don't really like to read much spice, whereas before being a Christian / when I was early on, I probably wouldn't bother as much. Although I didn't read as much obvious romance back then, really. It was more like accompanying it. So I seem to have somehow dodged all of that, probably because I didn't really read actual romance books. So there's that as well. Yeah, so it's, yeah, I probably wouldn't read open door, well not probably, I wouldn't read open door scenes, you know, where you actually see it on the page, people, you know, consummating their relationships, I would say, and that's including whether they're married or not. I wouldn't read it either. So yeah, you know, and then at the end of the day, it just kind of depends on how I'm feeling at the time. Some stuff I will just skip through, and then others I'll just stop reading. It just depends, you know, like how I'm feeling, basically, whether I'm interested in the rest of the story, and also depending on where it comes in the story. Like if it's really early on or really late on, I'll probably, you know, skip it and then continue, or whatever. So it just depends. I would rather not have to read those things. If I know about it, I probably wouldn't. Some books, if I don't know about it, then I'll come across it and I'll do whatever's best at the time. But yeah. So yeah, I think that's the main thing, is just spicy stuff especially, and also the kind of witchy, horror-y sort of books. It depends, with the horror especially, it does depend on different things. But I mean, I've never been a massive horror fan anyway, in general, even before, especially with books, but I have read stuff, especially because I like thrillers and gothic fiction as well anyway, so sometimes I am sort of like on the edge of it and sort of kind of just seeing what happens and how I'm feeling about certain things to see whether I would continue or not. So it just depends. So yeah, I think that's probably it really. My reading taste, I probably expanded it in terms of I've read more other genres that I probably wouldn't have read as a kid. So like historical ones especially, that aren't necessarily exciting or adventurous or anything like that. So like Carlos Readathon, he writes historical, and most of his books are set in like the the 30s and 40s, so like, you know, you might have a bit of like the World War II stuff, or at least it's set in those times. It doesn't really go into it. They're not World War II fiction, at least the ones that I've read so far, but they are set in those decades. But because they're action and adventure and a little bit of that sort of horror, gothic, fantastical sort of stuff, it's not quite the same thing as a proper historical fiction. So like, say, a World War II fiction, or, I don't know, a romance, historical romance. So like, those sort of ones I never really read growing up, so that's changed. Like, I've read more of those in recent years. So, you know, I've read a few more classics. I never really read classics before then. I might have read some of like the more modern classics, you might say. So I've read a little bit of Michael Morpurgo. Jacqueline Wilson is a British author who I think a lot of people, especially in my age group, would say she'd be a modern classic. A lot of, especially young girls, have read her books in England. Certainly, or at least tried them anyway. So, you know, it just, you know, things change. But like other classics like Bronte's or Ella Montgomery, you know, like I never read any of those growing up. Especially like the children's Ella Montgomery, Louisa May Alcott, Frances Hodgson Burnett. Like, I've never read any children's classics like that I remember. So, you know, things definitely have changed as I've gotten older, and my interests have changed. Especially in terms of wanting to explore the classics, because I never grew up with it. We never really did classics in school. The nearest is Shakespeare's poetry and a little bit about Twelfth Night. But I don't really remember much about Twelfth Night other than watching the film. We probably looked at, you know, excerpts from the play and stuff, but I just don't remember looking at those. So, you know, it's, yeah, it changes, and it'll probably change again multiple times as I get older, you know. So, yeah, I think that is my answer for Celestia's last question. I have no other questions. That was my last one. So I am going to quickly finish up. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this. This is a very long, I mean, it's basically a film. As I'm filming this, it says 1 hour 55 minutes. So it's basically 2 hours. And to be fair, it's not been edited, but I can already tell I won't be doing much editing. So it's going to be a long one. So I hope that you either watch this on a quicker speed, or at least you had like a drink or a snack, or your lunch or dinner, whichever. Whatever works for you. You can pause and come back, I'm sure, and stuff like that. I don't mind. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it though, and I hope it's helped you to learn more about me and what my thoughts are, my life, my Christian faith, stuff like that. I hope you enjoyed it and found it interesting. If there's anything you want to know more about, especially in terms of the Christian faith stuff, but also any other questions, do leave them below. I could either do another Q&A, or I'll just answer your comments if it's not anything much or whatever, or if it's something I didn't quite answer correctly, like, well, not correctly, but enough, like with Christian faith stuff, or themes that I like in books, because I don't know if I answered that question correctly, do you? Sorry. I hope I did. Just let me know and I can try and explain better if you help me understand what I need to answer. So yes, thank you so much to every one of you who have sent in a question. Thank you for all of those of you who said congratulations as well. And thank you so much to every one of you who watch these videos, who have subscribed, who like and comment and all the rest of it. I really appreciate your time and, you know, the fact that you want to watch my videos, because I don't do very much with them. They're nothing special, you know. Even the odd vlog that I've done, they've never been quite, you know, it's never been very pretty, you know, or exciting or anything like that. So I really appreciate that you would still want to give me your time, because time is precious. We can't get that back. So yes, and thank you so much for all of you, whether you've only just subscribed or whether you've been subscribed from very near the beginning, whether you comment or not. Feel free to comment. You know, it's a safe space, or as safe as it can be anyway, because it is the internet. But, you know, in terms of me, and I hope all of my other subscribers, you know, we're a friendly bunch. You know, as long as, you know, we don't want any hate unnecessarily, you know, or anything like that. But anyone can comment, you know. It's a safe space for that. If any of you are watching and you've not subscribed, please do. There's always the bell to notify you. I'm usually pretty regular. I usually upload once a week, usually on Saturday morning at 10:30 UK time. I don't know what that is where you are, I apologise. But I'm usually pretty regular, so far anyway, God willing, and barring any unforeseen circumstances. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm coming up to a year as well on YouTube, so I'm thinking I might do the 1 year booktube tag or 1 year YouTube tag or whatever, because I know Lucy mentioned it to another booktube friend of mine who's about to come, who's about to come to a year on YouTube as well in the same month that I am. So yeah, so when I heard about that, I was like, oh, that's perfect. I'll probably do that as well. So yeah, so that'll be coming up in a week or two. I'm not sure when, but it'll be September probably. So yes, thank you so much for watching. I apologise it's such a long video. I appreciate the time that you've spent, not just on my channel, but on my really long videos, because I am very good at chatting, as I have just been showing you by me going, I'll be quick at saying goodbye, and then just chatting. It's terrible. So yes, I'm going to leave you now. Thank you so much for watching. God bless, and I will see you all next week. Bye.